And right now we're on the flight deck, and I happen to be sitting in the commander's seat. Now the commander is that person, that astronaut on the mission, who has control over everything that happens on the mission. He can control the space shuttle. He has control of all the computers. He is the senior officer aboard the space shuttle. In the seat right to the right here is where the pilot sits. And he is the person who is in charge of actually piloting the space shuttle, the orbiter, during all phases of flight. That would be during the launch phase, during when the space shuttle is in space, and also during the reentry phase when the space shuttle comes back home. Now, towards the rear of the flight deck, if you follow me back here, it is kind of cramped back here. At the back of the flight deck is where they control the RMS, which is called the Remote Manipulator System, or the robotic arm. This device right here is how the astronaut would control that arm, and he would look through these windows to see exactly what he was trying to either release or grasp, and he would use this controller to do that. Now these seats that you see, there's one over here and there's also one over here. These are seats that the mission specialists and payload specialists would sit in during the launch only, because once the spacecraft was up in space, these would be taken down and folded and put away so that there would be more room for the astronauts to work up here on the flight deck. All right. Now let's go down to the mid-deck and see what goes on down there. Now you may notice that I'm climbing down these stairs, and this opening is sort of right behind the commander's seat. You would not have to use these stairs if you were up in space, because you would be weightless and you would be able to actually just float, probably head first, right down through this opening and go right down to the mid-deck. It would be a lot easier. Let's go down and see what's down there. Okay, now we're on the mid-deck, and we just came down the stairs from the flight deck, and then right behind me is the restroom. This is where the astronauts have the restroom facilities, and it's right here on the mid-deck, and it's very, very similar to the toilet you might have at home. The only difference is, because you're weightless, there's little foot restraints and there's a little seat belt that you have to put on, and that holds you in place. Now if you look over here, this is the hatch that we entered when we first came in the space shuttle, when we first entered the space shuttle before launch. Okay? This is also the same hatch that we will exit out to the outside once the space shuttle comes back in for a landing. This area here is called the galley. This is where the astronauts prepare their food. If we take this down, you can see there's a little platform that they can prepare their things. Up here there's a microwave where they can actually cook their food, and they actually prepare it right here, very similar to the way you might prepare your food at home. If we continue on around this way, you'll see the backs of some of these seats. Now again, these are seats that the mission specialists and payload specialists would sit in during the launch only. After the launch, these particular seats would be folded up and stowed away so that there would be more room here on the mid-deck. Okay? Now you may notice some of these various compartments here, and this is where all the materials are stored. Things like food, other equipment, scientific equipment, also clothing. They would be stored in these compartments right here, and then as they're needed, they can open up these compartments and take out whatever they need and use whatever they need. If you continue on over here, if you can see, this is how the astronauts sleep. Now remember, they're floating around because it's weightless in space, and they can actually get inside these little like sleeping bags. They'll get inside, zip themselves up, and they will actually fold their arms, and they will sit there and float while they sleep. And they say it's very restful. It's like kind of like a water bed, only you're not sleeping on anything, you're actually floating. And notice that they are attached, because otherwise they would just float around the mid-deck and they might bang their head or bang into something, and they wouldn't want to do that. Okay? Continuing on around over here, we have what is called the airlock. Now this particular door opens up to an area inside the space shuttle where the astronauts have their spacesuits. And this is if they have to go out for an EVA, which is short for extravehicular activity, or a spacewalk. They climb through this opening into this airlock, and then inside this airlock they have, they have their spacesuits. And what they do while they're in the airlock is they put their spacesuits on, and then you'll notice on the far side there's another door. Now that door goes directly into the cargo bay, the back section of the space shuttle. and there could be equipment to work on there. There could be satellites stored in there for launch. There could be a lot of things going on in there, and that is where the astronauts actually exit the space shuttle when they go out for a spacewalk. But before they do that, they have to make sure that this door here is closed so they can form an airtight seal inside of the airlock. Okay? So we're going to go out and take a spacewalk right now, and we'll see you when we get back. So long.